The beautiful game turned ugly in Amsterdam. What was supposed to be a celebration of sport and unity quickly devolved into a scene of chaos and disrespect. A football match between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv became an international incident, drawing attention from media outlets and fans around the globe. It wasn't about the score, the goals, or the tactics on the field. It was about respect, or rather the glaring lack of it that overshadowed the entire event. Maccabi fans sparked outrage with their behavior, turning what should have been a peaceful sporting event into a cultural flashpoint that would be remembered for all the wrong reasons. The match was supposed to begin with a minute of silence, a solemn moment to honor the victims of a recent tragedy, a moment of unity for the victims of the recent floods in Valencia, a disaster that had claimed lives and left many more in despair. But for Maccabi fans, empathy seemed to be in short supply. Their actions during this moment of silence would shock and appall many. Instead of silence, there were jeers. Instead of a moment of reflection, there was noise and disruption. Instead of respect, there was mockery. The jeers and rude gestures from the stands were a stark contrast to the intended solemnity of the moment. This wasn't just about football anymore. It had transcended the sport and touched on something much deeper. This was about basic human decency, the kind of respect and empathy that should be universal regardless of the setting. People around the world watched in disbelief. News anchors reported on the incident with a mix of shock and disappointment. How could anyone mock a tragedy like that? The reactions from fans and viewers were of disbelief and concern. The incident exposed a deep cultural rift, a stark contrast in values and understanding. It highlighted the differences in how people perceive and react to tragedy. The match went on, but the damage was done. The actions of a few had cast a long shadow over the event. Disappointed fans left the stadium, their spirits dampened by the disrespect they had witnessed. The world was watching, and it didn't like what it saw. The incident became a topic of global discussion, with people from all walks of life weighing in on the matter. This was just the beginning. The incident sparked protests and discussions about respect, empathy, and the role of sports in society. In other parts of the world, sports events continued, with fans showing the respect and empathy that was so sorely lacking in Amsterdam. Players and coaches from both teams spoke out about the incident, expressing their disappointment and calling for greater respect in the future. In the aftermath, community events were held to promote unity and understanding, a reminder that respect and empathy should always be at the forefront. Fans from different cultures came together, showing that despite the actions of a few, the majority still believed in the power of unity and respect. Future matches saw a renewed emphasis on respect, with fans making a conscious effort to show empathy and understanding. Players and fans alike made a concerted effort to demonstrate sportsmanship, a reminder that at the end of the day, we are all part of the same global community. The Amsterdam Stadium stood as a reminder of the incident, but also as a symbol of the potential for change and growth. As fans entered the stadium for future matches, there was a sense of hope and determination to do better, to be better. A new match began, with players and fans united in their love for the game and their commitment to respect and empathy. The beautiful game had the power to unite, to bring people together, and to remind us all of the importance of respect and empathy. The disrespect didn't end with the minute of silence. What was meant to be a solemn moment of reflection and respect was shattered by jeers and interruptions. The atmosphere, already charged with tension, grew even more hostile as the game progressed. Maccabi fans continued their provocations throughout the match. Their chants were not just about supporting their team, they were laced with venom and aimed at provoking the opposition. The intensity of their words echoed around the stadium, creating an environment that was anything but sporting. Chants rang out, targeting Arabs with hateful slogans. These were not isolated incidents, but a continuous barrage of hate speech that seemed to gain momentum as the match went on. The words were sharp, cutting through the air and leaving a trail of animosity in their wake. Palestinian children who lost their lives in Gaza were mocked. This was not just a football match. It had become a platform for expressing deep-seated prejudices and hostilities. The memory of innocent lives lost was desecrated by those who chose to use their voices for hate rather than remembrance. The stadium became a breeding ground for intolerance. What should have been a place of unity and celebration of sport turned into a cauldron of division and hatred. The beautiful game was marred by the ugliness of bigotry and xenophobia. The beautiful game meant to unite was being used to divide. Fans who should have been united in their love for football found themselves on opposite sides of a deep and bitter divide. The spirit of camaraderie was replaced by a palpable sense of hostility. The air crackled with tension, the joy of sport replaced by anger and fear. Every cheer, every chant, every movement on the field was charged with an undercurrent of animosity. The players too seemed affected, their performances overshadowed by the toxic atmosphere. But the ugliness didn't stay confined to the stadium. As the final whistle blew, the tension spilled out into the streets. What should have been a peaceful dispersal of fans turned into a chaotic scene of conflict and disorder. After the match, the streets of Amsterdam became a battleground. The anger and frustration that had been simmering inside the stadium erupted into violence. The city, known for its tolerance and peace, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Maccabi fans, fueled by alcohol and hatred, went on a rampage. Their actions were not just about expressing support for their team. They were acts of aggression aimed at anyone who represented the other. The streets echoed with the sounds of breaking glass and shouted insults. Property was vandalized, Palestinian flags torn down. The symbols of identity and pride for one community became targets for another. The destruction was not just physical, but symbolic, a deliberate attempt to erase and demean. Local communities, particularly those of Moroccan and Algerian descent, couldn't stay silent. They had been watching, listening, and now they were ready to respond. Their patience had worn thin, and their voices rose in unison against the tide of hatred. They had seen and heard enough. The provocations, the vandalism, the blatant displays of intolerance had pushed them to the brink. They took to the streets, not just in protest, but in a show of solidarity and resistance. Confrontations erupted, fueled by years of simmering tensions. The clashes were not just about the events of that night, but were the culmination of long-standing grievances and unresolved conflicts. The streets of Amsterdam became a microcosm of a larger, more complex struggle. The events in Amsterdam were a stark reminder that hatred and intolerance can have far-reaching consequences. What started as a football match ended as a sobering lesson in the dangers of allowing prejudice and bigotry to go unchecked. The city, the fans, and the communities involved were left to pick up the pieces and reflect on the true cost of such divisions. The Amsterdam incident exposed a stark divide in global perceptions. In the Middle East, many saw the actions of those confronting the Maccabi fans as a justified response to provocation. It was about standing up against disrespect, about defending their honor and dignity. Western media, however, often painted a different picture. Headlines screamed about riots and hooliganism, framing the events through a lens of law and order. The historical context, the years of perceived injustice and marginalization were often missing from the narrative. This clash of perspectives highlights a fundamental challenge in our interconnected world. The same event can be interpreted in vastly different ways, shaped by cultural biases and historical experiences. Understanding these different narratives is crucial. It's about moving beyond simplistic labels like rioters and victims and acknowledging the complex realities that fuel such conflicts. Section 4. The Digital Echo Chamber: Social Media's Amplifying Effect. In today's hyper-connected world, news travels at the speed of a tweet. Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram have revolutionized the way we consume and share information. A single post can reach millions of people within minutes, creating a ripple effect that can influence public opinion and even shape real-world events. And the Amsterdam incident was no exception. What started as a local event quickly escalated into a global phenomenon thanks to the power of social media. Videos of the Maccabi fans' behavior, captured on smartphones and shared across various platforms, showed the chants, the vandalism, and the chaos that ensued. These videos went viral within hours, spreading like wildfire across the internet. Social media became a digital echo chamber, amplifying both outrage and misinformation. The same content was shared and reshared, creating a feedback loop that intensified emotions and polarized opinions. People shared their perspectives, often raw and unfiltered, fueled by anger, fear, and prejudice. The anonymity of the internet allowed individuals to express their emotions without restraint, leading to heated debates and sometimes even online harassment. The problem with this rapid-fire dissemination of information is the lack of context. Nuance is lost in the digital whirlwind, replaced by sensationalized headlines and emotionally charged soundbites. This can lead to misunderstandings and the spread of false information, as people are more likely to react to sensational content than to seek out the full story. The Amsterdam incident serves as a stark reminder of the power and peril of social media. It highlights how quickly information can spread and how easily it can be distorted. On one hand, social media can be a force for good, raising awareness about injustice and holding the powerful accountable. It has the potential to mobilize people for positive change and to give a voice to those who might otherwise be unheard. But it can also be a weapon, spreading misinformation and deepening societal divisions. The same platforms that can unite people for a common cause can also be used to sow discord and spread falsehoods. Social media algorithms often prioritize content that generates strong reactions, which can trap users in filter bubbles where they are only exposed to information that reinforces their existing beliefs. This can create a distorted view of reality and make it difficult for people to engage in constructive dialogue. Efforts to combat misinformation and promote media literacy are crucial in this digital age. By encouraging critical thinking and responsible sharing, we can harness the power of social media for good while mitigating its potential harms. Ultimately, the impact of social media depends on how we choose to use it. By being mindful of the content we consume and share, we can contribute to a more informed and connected world. The Amsterdam incident is a powerful example of both the potential and the pitfalls of social media. It reminds us that while these platforms can amplify our voices, they also come with great responsibility. As we navigate this digital landscape, let us strive to use social media as a tool for positive change rather than a source of division. Section 5: Deeper Roots: Geopolitics and the Israeli Response. The Amsterdam incident cannot be viewed in isolation. It's inextricably linked to the broader geopolitical context, particularly the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Israeli government was quick to condemn the events, framing them as an anti-Semitic attack. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu even suggested repatriating Israeli citizens for their safety. This response, however, was met with skepticism in many parts of the world, particularly in the Middle East. Critics saw it as a cynical attempt to deflect attention from the initial provocations of the Maccabi fans. The Amsterdam incident shone a light on the deep-seated frustrations and mistrust that permeate the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It highlighted the challenges of achieving peace and reconciliation in a region riven by decades of violence and animosity.